Hi, everybody, and welcome to an Eating at a Meeting live from Catersource. I'm on the show floor with my friend Laura Schwartz.
Hello, it's so amazing to be here. And yes, you, Tracy, as always, are in the middle of it all.
We are in the middle of it all.
I love
it's crazy. So, and you just jumped off the stage as the keynote speaker.
I did. I even got to come in the back way. So this worked out super well. It is just one moment after the next at Catersource The Special Event. And I can't wait to go all the way back and talk about our first time at this conference in one of its many evolutions. But it is cool how everything goes one to the next to the next.
Yes.
You have so much inspiration all around you. It's exciting.
Thank you. Let's just jump back before we talk about our common ground, which is what you talked about today on this keynote stage. But I mean, we go back from 2003. I think my first special event was like 97 or 98.
Wow. I so admire you for that. I was at the White House from 93 to 01.
Okay.
Because, at noon on Inauguration Day, if your administration doesn't continue, it flips.
Right.
And
exactly.
You literally 11:52, you're out. But it's so amazing. You do that for 8 years, or in my case, I did. And then after that, you kind of think about, okay, what's next?
Right.
And who am I? Why am I here? And how you can be effective just as your own person, not just as the one with the fancy business card with the seal of the president. And for me, it was just about a year later going to my first event industry show, because I really didn't know where, what I did behind the scenes at the White House as the director of events, how I would translate that into my everyday life, for work or, in some sort. So just coming to be surrounded by an events community, from your perspective, from the lighting folks, from, the catering, and it just was a fabulous way to just see what was out there and how I could stay connected to a passion that I so enjoy. Yeah.
Well, and it reminds me exactly of what you asked Gwen on the stage today, or you asked the 4 panelists, what was that transition or what did you do? And she said she focused on her skill set.
I love that.
Transitioning from nonprofit to corporate, but she focused on her skill set. And I think that's so valuable. And that's what you did.
Yes. And I give that advice quite often. I have a friend of mine whose sister works for an unnamed celebrity, I'll say, that's kind of going through some issues right now.
Yeah.
And they're really worried because they were going to maybe get out of being associated earlier.
Right.
And now they're like, well, if I go now, who's going to hire me? And it's like, no, just focus on your skills.
Right.
Focus on the basics, because you have those. They are translatable. They are transferable. They are not just tied to one person.
Right.
They are not just tied to whoever's on the letterhead of your company. They are tied to you.
Yep.
And, today we had a really fun time on stage. I gave the opening keynote, but because of my background in events, I always like to change it up. And I really wanted to do something fun. So I did a tight 10 of content at the top. And then I asked the folks behind Catersource The Special Event, which is Informa, led by Melissa Fermento and Kathleen Stower, who you know very well. Really great icons in the industry. I said, what if we did this? Could I transform the stage into a coffee house?
It was so fun.
And then bring, 4 people up, and they gave me people at different points in their careers and different types of careers. And I got together with everybody a couple weeks ago. We had a great conversation, virtually, of things that we could talk about that could matter to the audience at hand. And then my big thing, because we went through just the whole stage transition.
Right.
Once a director of events, always. And so we planned all of that so that we went from a keynote empty stage with just myself to where I said, my favorite third place is a coffee shop, and then coffee kind of went on some of the LEDs, and then it morphed into, oh, hello.
Great. Now you're good.
Yeah. Great things happen during live podcasts.
Exactly.
Eating at a meeting.
You're good.
Lovely to meet you. Thank
Nice
you.
to meet you.
Where are you from?
From Rowan University in
Oh,
New Jersey.
look
Just
at it.
outside Philadelphia.
Rowan University is here. And I think that is so
conference
wonderful,
is having
because
their conference
I have
in
to say,
the Ridge.
sometimes people think, well, I'm in education or I'm in nonprofit. Should I
What
go
is
to
the
an
Ridge? It's,
industry
the Verizon
conference, and maybe it's a
facility
one-day
in New
program,
Jersey. They're in April.
5-day extravaganza conference like this, or even just a luncheon? there are groups like ALIA, the International
You don't
Live
have a
Events
meeting space?
Association,
We do, but
Meeting Planners International.
it's unique to
All of these, none of these are unique just to people that have been in their careers for 20 years or corporate. It's open to everyone. So I really applaud you for being here from Rowan University. Thank you so much.
AEP first.
Yeah.
And they came here. It's
They're really, you never know who you're going to meet around the corner. But let me get back to
Okay,
this
yeah. I can't scan
presentation
it. Come back
today.
and find me, Linda. Okay. Yes.
It transferred over into like what looked like a coffee shop.
Yeah.
And these four individuals came up, all with different backgrounds. And one of them, Gwen McNutt, she is the regional affairs community director at Comcast Cable Chicago. But she started out a nonprofit. She was a nonprofit for about 20 years and wanted to make that leap to corporate, but still keep her hands in that volunteer community. And so she successfully did that by creating a resume that talked about her skill set.
Yep.
Because, unfortunately, I agree with what she said today. Some people might just look at me like nonprofit.
Right. Yeah.
They think, and by the way, nonprofits do big things.
They do. They
so
raise
it
a lot of
should
money.
It's not a lot of money, a lot of impact.
Yep.
But yeah, she really gave a lovely connotation to skills and experience and what that means.
Yeah. And we think, and I remember reading an article years ago that meeting planners could only be administrative assistants. But I mean, that is so wrong. I mean, our skill set of being able to solve problems at the last minute, figure out where the porta potties need to go, setting up the AV, finding a dongle at the last minute to hook into your computer. We know how to find solutions. And I think that's a really good asset that we have as event professionals.
Mm-hmm. I agree, because you're constantly problem solving.
Yes.
But you hopefully also have surrounded yourself with collaborators and a network of people around you on any given location. And by the way, that doesn't mean you have to have a staff of 5 that you bring in to help you. You come on site. I met the sales director, Carrie Craig, of the Austin Convention Center. And I just said hello, thanked her for hosting. And she said, if you need anything, let me know. I said, well, excellent. I'm here as a party of one. My mom and dad usually travel with me. Big shout out to Judy and Denny. And they run for me. They get things. They get me where I'm supposed to be at the right time. And they're at home in Chicago for this show. And I thought I'd be lost, but I have to say, I have found so many amazing people that I've met that have been able to help me out with things here, things there, that you do have this, you create the network around you wherever you go.
You do. And that, I think, resonated really a lot. I took a lot of notes this morning. Our power cord is falling off. But from the session today on our common ground, and I really like thing that, let me go to my notes here that I took.
Well, I talk about networking often, obviously. I wrote the book, Eat, Drink, and Succeed about it.
Yeah.
But, the whole idea of Eat, Drink, and Succeed is that we have the conversations that can change our life when we least expect them, because you never know when the next conversation, like what we're having now, could change my life, more importantly, yours or anybody here watching. That's what matters.
Right.
And we do that in these sometimes unlikely places. And so I talk often about that, our common grounds where we come together. And I started really studying an urban sociologist recently. His name was Ray Oldenburg. And in 1989, he wrote the book, The Great Good Places.
Okay.
And it's all about a concept of a third place that he really coined. And it's basically your home is your first place, your work is the second place, and then the third place is where you gather with people outside of the first and the second. And these are the barbershops, beauty salons, they're community centers, cultural centers, the baseball field, and a bar, a saloon back in the day,
the stage of Catersource.
Yes, the stage, all of it. And what I really appreciate from there is it opens our eyes to that third place that we can all identify with. And if we can't, we can find in our neighborhood, because this is where you meet other regulars. And today on stage during the content piece, kind of like my tight 10 minutes at the top, because I figured give some great content, but then let's hear from attendees themselves. And the 5 functions are as follows. The first function, that the third place unifies communities, and that the main activity of a third place is conversation. which I think is really neat.
I
and
do.
that you can access friends by the set, by the group. And so that's the first function. Then there's release of your role. Where, as I said today, if you're not catering this show, if you're not planning and providing and supplying to the show, release your role. And you just open your eyes and look around, because the third place allows you to do that.
Right.
And so embrace it, immerse yourself, and be jubilant. Let yourself laugh and look around. In fact, there's a study, Tracy, the average American laughs on average, and I don't think we're average when it comes to this, but on average about 20 times a day. But the average American that's in a third place, Ray Oldenburg found in a group of like 3 to 8, laughs 107 times on average an hour collectively, that group.
Wow.
It also provides an intellectual forum where there's an exchange of ideas and knowledge face to face.
Yep.
And then it also has social capital. They found that areas in the United States with third places have a greater economic impact.
Oh, wow.
And you even look at, today, here we are, Catersource Event, the special event. I read the report from 2023, the Events Industry Council. They found that the global impact economically of the catering and events industry is approximately $1.6 trillion.
Yeah.
1.6 trillion. There's not many things that I identify with that have that big of an impact.
Right.
But we all, every single one of us, contribute to that impact.
Yep.
And that's empowering. And then the last thing is that these third places, these common grounds, as I call them, are mutual aid societies.
Okay.
Which means they're the great leveler.
Okay.
People at a third place, you walk into a bar. I was at a diner last night, the Gray Diner over at the Thompson Austin. You meet people from all different backgrounds, stations in life, careers, places in their careers. And it's the great leveler. No one's above anybody else. And that leads to just that deeper trust, exchange of knowledge, and collaboration. And becomes this like mutual aid society. So there are just great benefits to what I call the common grounds. And also many times a playground in the case of Catersource The Special Event.
Totally. Yeah. I mean, and I like the fact the little mini communities as well, because I like my friend Wilbur just walked by from Atlanta, and so I'm seeing all my friends from Atlanta because I don't live there anymore. And so you have that connection to that. And then I saw some vendors that I'm going to use in San Antonio. And so that's a nice little thing in it.
And it's face to face and 3D. You see, so much of what we pick up when we're speaking to each other is unspoken.
Right.
And it's the body language, it's the intonation, it's the eye movement. All of these things come together to communicate a message that we long for. And I love it.
We're getting our photo taken right now. Hello. Hey.
Love it.
One of the things that I this morning, the statistic that you said, the $1.6 trillion. One number that comes out that is still back from 2018 is 65 billion of that is on food and beverage.
I had no idea.
Yeah. So that
split. And that was
how
just
much
that.
Yeah. And they did not do it in the 2023 report. They didn't break that out. But so I still stick with that 65 billion on food and beverage.
Should.
And which ties back to your eat, drink, and succeed. It's like, how do you help people succeed when they're eating and drinking and you're spending that much money on food and beverage?
Well, exactly. And for me, harkening back to my event days, behind the scenes, is creating the atmosphere that has fabulous background music, but not too loud that you can't speak to each other.
Right.
That has amazing food, but no lines, that it's easily accessible.
Right.
And by the way, when you get to it, it's the right size that you can carry it, that you can eat it and not speak with your mouth full. And many other, the lighting, you want great mood lighting, but not so dark that you bump into people. And, use really interesting visual cues to lead people from one space to another through their journey of that event, whether it's an hour or, 5 days.
Right.
But what I really, to your point, and what I think you were on the forefront of this entire industry about, Tracy, is that there is food that's not just accessible and easy to get to, but that complements your lifestyle.
Right.
And I say lifestyle, I'm sure you say it in another way, because for some people it's a complete necessity. Right. Biologically, for another set of people, it's a choice that is their diet mantra. So
Right.
why would we have to give that up?
Right.
And then that's just all it does is cause another layer. Now you're thinking, I can't eat that. I can't, oh, there's nothing I'm
Right,
gonna
yeah.
go have somewhere. And while you're thinking all of that, you've taken yourself out of the moment when you
Yeah.
can be creating a relationship,
Mhm.
they can turn into a partnership. You're taking yourself out of a moment of a conversation where you could be really thinking of the next idea you want to make a
Yeah.
reality. And so eating matters
It does.
and the availability of that. And so for you, we were talking, we came together so many years ago, and your first way before me in the late 90s. How far have you seen the industry come as far as choices,
It's
educated
Mhm.
choices?
it's there's still a lot of room to grow, but it has come a long way. I mean, at my hotel this morning, I saw some labeling on the thing saying gluten free, and it was on the fruit. But I'm like, I'm glad you
Safe on
noted
that
that.
one.
Yeah, exactly. They didn't have any labels on the muffins.
Which are really your riskier
Right,
choice.
exactly. So most people are going to avoid those, but I do think that we've come a long way, but we still have a long way to go. Because I do think, and I think people are scared of risk and
Interesting.
like, oh, we're never going to be gluten free, and I know you're never going to be a completely gluten free catering company.
Yeah.
But I actually met a completely vegan chef last night, or catering company at the party last night.
See, and that wasn't in the corner office. It
Right.
wasn't a scheduled meeting.
Right,
You were at the
exactly.
party.
And I got
That's
her
where
card,
things
and I'm like,
happen.
"Are you going to be at the show tomorrow?" And she's like, "I don't know." And I'm like, "I want to talk to you."
Oh,
Yeah,
that is just so neat. And when we kind of think ahead, we can be prepared where, okay, we're ready to exchange contact information. We're ready to, make a connection here that doesn't stay here. I love opening shows in Vegas because I'm like, what happens in Vegas? Yeah, some of it should probably stay here, but not everything that happens at this conference.
right.
It's meant to be a starting point, but then you've got to, whether I'm emceeing an event or I'm keynoting it, you want everybody to have a charge.
Yes.
So it continues.
Mhm.
And I think that's how you've approached eating and dietary requirements, is that you've given people a charge.
Yeah.
And almost like a challenge.
Yeah,
Okay, so yeah, you're not going to be a gluten-free kitchen, but what can you do to take the next step?
right. Exactly. Always rethinking, redesigning what you're doing, and up leveling it, and that's what this whole
I
convention
love
is about.
up-leveling.
Up
That's a good one.
leveling
We
it.
should
Yeah,
use that
yeah,
more.
exactly.
Yeah.
And so how can you make that experience, because this industry is all about making experiences, so how can you make that experience
Yeah.
even better, especially for those people who normally feel neglected or left out of that dining event?
It's, can I just pick up on something that
Yeah.
you just said? You said people that feel neglected. Isn't it amazing how the emotional and physical go hand in hand?
Yeah.
And if you're in an environment where you feel neglected, how much do you think you're going to thrive when it comes to not just meeting other people,
Right.
whether it leads to collaboration or not, just widening your network and just being present and
Right.
able to absorb the information, the content that can make an impact in your
Yeah.
life, or better yet, that of somebody else's, that you can share out afterwards. Yes, if you feel neglected, you're not in that space.
Right.
And, I talked about these third spaces and the common grounds and how everyone here, the caterers, from the chefs to the managers, the suppliers of food, linen, dishes, trailers, bouncy houses, tables, you name it. And then the event planners and producers, the providers, the fabricators.
Right.
Everybody has a role to play, whether it's a one-off luncheon for an hour or a big conference like this. You are bringing people into a space for 1 hour.
Right.
And you want to make it count. And you want to create an atmosphere where I like to say your guests are able to do 3 critical things. One is that no matter who they're next to, their best friend, a new friend, a peer, or their fiercest competitor, to create an atmosphere that allows you to share your challenges openly and honestly,
Yeah.
without retribution or dirty looks, to search for solutions, because we all can share what we know for the better good of all of it,
Right.
and celebrate success. So you should, I hope, you spend all this time on creating that atmosphere to share, search, and celebrate. But then you've got to make sure the atmosphere is right, and you take that one element out, it's really challenging to get back on track.
Yeah, and I like that. I like those 3 words that you have, because you do have purpose when you're going to an event. It's not just, and you spend a lot of money.
Oh my gosh, you've got to
And
make it worth it. The
you-
logistics.
Yeah, and the registration fee, not only the hotel and the airfare and the dinners out when you're not eating at the convention. I'm like, you're spending a lot of money to make those connections. And we, as those producers of those events, need to make sure that those connections are worth that money.
And can I share with you from the guest side, even at the White House days, we learned often we could not celebrate St. Patrick's Day at the White House without more food being available. And I'll give you a quick story.
Okay.
Every year, St. Patrick's Day in March, obviously, the Taoiseach, the Prime Minister of Ireland, comes over to the United States.
He comes every September.
He's over here, or she.
Wow.
There's been a she. Comes over to the United States, does an event on the Hill with Congress, comes to the White House, and the President and First Lady, usually, most always, except for a couple administrations, host the Taoiseach and their spouse or partner and have a lovely reception. They have an exchange of shamrocks earlier in the day in the Roosevelt Room in the West Wing, and then a lovely party over in the East Wing. And we invite everyone who's Irish on the Hill, members of Congress, governors, staff members, police, you name it. And I have to say, the first year we did it, we didn't have enough food available. And we prided ourselves on having the best Irish beers and locally United States brewed Irish stouts and whiskeys. And let me just say, a lot of people had a really good time that they may not remember the next day or even later that night. So you want to always have food with it. And from there on, we're like cheese straws, anything. We need something heartier because nobody's eating the Irish soda bread. Nobody's eating the mini corned beef sandwiches. But anyway, I digress. But I think that shows, you go through all this trouble. Like you say, you spend the money, logistically take time away from your office. And there are people, and I'm not going to judge because if that's on their agenda, they checked it off, that come, they drink as much as they can at the open bar.
Right.
And, jokes aren't funny the day after if you can't remember them.
True.
And in Eat, Drink, and Succeed, I make the point that sometimes you have to stop and ask yourself, is it cocktail talk or is my cocktail talking? You've got to know, yes. Is it cocktail talk or is it my cocktail talking? And it's a whole chapter in my book. Because, we really miss out. You make all this effort. And I love to make a to-do list and an agenda, which is, I want to see so-and-so, if I have people, and then I want to meet 3 new people. If you're not a social butterfly, maybe on your list is, I want to meet 1 new person. That's all you got to do. And it's worth it. Well, and I want to be inspired by 2 things. And then if you want to leave, you can. But, the more you stay, the more you learn.
Exactly. Well, and another thing from your book or from your speech way back in 2003 was that and I think I've seen you multiple times.
Yes.
At least
We've
twice
seen
now.
each other a lot.
But was like, you always went to LinkedIn and you found out, you researched that person, and you found out, because if you knew where you were going to sit or you knew something, the one person you had on your list you wanted to meet, you went and looked. Well, there was not Instagram back then.
No, and LinkedIn was fairly new as well.
So you went and found something about them so that you could bring it up in conversation. Oh, hey, I saw that you were just nominated for this or whatever.
I often say this as well. There's a fine line between networking and stalking.
Yes,
it is a fine line. But I believe the more you can research on those that are going to be there, that you want to meet, or that that you're going to be there and you just want to have some more context before you walk through the door. It also, increases your confidence to have a couple of conversation nuggets that aren't just about the weather or how was your flight, but rather about some content or about something that that they would be interested. Maybe you read on their page that they're really into architecture. So you mentioned, just do a little toss out about the architecture in Austin, and they're going to respond to that. And now you've started off on something interesting, and not just the basics. And they'll remember you for that. And that'll lead to the next, place in your conversation. But I really think it's neat to have a few nuggets. And when you don't even know, like for sure, what somebody might be interested in.
Right.
I love looking at the location. I think of some fun facts, and I'll Google
Yep.
fun facts all the time, have them in my back pocket. For example, the fun fact that I looked up about Austin, and there's a bunch of cool ones. You know who's in catering and events?
No.
Sandra Bullock.
Really?
And she is actually the owner of Fancy and Staple on 6th Avenue down at, it's called Walton's Fancy and Staple.
Okay.
Great coffee shop.
Uh-huh.
It's also a flower shop
Oh,
and
wow.
some small gifts. And it's at 6th Avenue and Noches Street,
Okay.
Nocces. And it's just a great low-key place to go. And it's a lovely place to go see how Austin does coffee. And
Okay.
at the same time, if you're walking down 6th Street, where everybody is, right? Is it 6th or Broadway? No, it's 6th.
I think it's
Broadway
yeah.
is in Nashville, so on
Yeah.
6th Street. Thank you. Travel it all the time. But on 6th Street is the Driscoll Hotel.
Mhm.
And it is this grand old hotel. And LBJ watched the returns from his election with JFK.
Oh, wow.
At that hotel, they have the LBJ suite. You get to walk all the way through. They've got the most amazing second level, open to the public. And it just has great history in it.
Oh,
So
cool.
it's just, there's a lot of texture everywhere you go.
Mhm.
So just Google it before you come, and then you can share that with people.
Yeah, and
yeah.
did you, when we saw each other yesterday when I was walking out the convention
Yeah.
center, did you notice the bike racks that were out there?
Yes.
They're shaped in as a bat. And so, because Austin is known for the bats.
Yeah, they
but-
fly out underneath the
bridges.
bridge every
yeah.
night. Yeah.
And I think my friend said they're not in season right now.
Oh,
They've flown off
so
somewhere.
we didn't get here in bat
We
season.
did not.
Did that discount anything or price is lower? if
I
it's
doubt
not
it.
bat
I doubt
season?
it. But you can connect your bike to the bike rack that looks like
I love
that. Yeah. But I loved how they tied that in and did that. But
Yeah,
it's
that's cool.
just fun facts like that. I really do like that.
Yeah, good conversation
Yeah.
starters, and it's just fun. It's just fun.
All right. So I want to go back to some things that you said today
Anything.
we talked about the 3 places, the 5 functions of third places.
Yep.
But I think what was really pertinent too was the fact that both Ray said and you said is that or actually it was from the whys that you got from the White House. Why
yeah.
are we doing this?
Oh,
so
yeah.
the ROI
The
and
reasons.
the power, the reasons why those 5. So you can talk
Yeah,
about
you
those?
know, President Clinton taught me something, that's always stuck with me. It was during the 96 re-elect, and I was there all 8 years. And he had just done a debate with Bob Dole, who was he was running against or with for president. He never really liked to say against because he always told me, Laura, we may be, yes, technically running against each other, but we're both running to solve problems.
Oh, I love
We just
that,
happen to have different solutions. It was very civilized. And,
Wow, I
Yeah.
like that.
and he
yeah.
said, I didn't run against H.W. Bush either.
Yeah.
We ran together, and whoever had the best solutions to fit people's, needs
Right.
won, which was him. Woo, twice in a row. A job was secure. But it was during that re-elect in 96. He came off the stage, and we were talking about something that he said on the stage, and he said, Laura, it's more important to share to the constituents and the American people, whether they're going to vote for me or not.
Yeah.
I want them to know why I'm saying, not just what I'm saying.
Right.
And that always stuck with me. So I always make sure, whether it's a keynote speech or even an MC engagement that I'm doing, and I'm weaving through the fabric of the message over the course of a few days, let's talk about why what's
Right.
being said is being said. And so after I talked about those 5 functions, and thanks for noticing this,
Yep.
I had a slide with the reasons that I shared it. And I don't usually use slides with words. They have visuals, they have videos, make it super fun and high impact. But I really thought that this was important. And I said, I shared with you these 5 functions of third places because 1, the power of you. And I
Right.
speak about the power of you often. And in this context, I said, because I want you, we're all superheroes. We all
Right.
have
We
capes.
are. Yep, we do.
And as I said today, sometimes capes might feel a little tattered, might be
Mhm.
harder to put it on some days than others, but realize your value in contributing to and creating the third place
Yep.
that make an impact in people's lives. Because again, every event, no matter how large, small, big budget, low budget, intimate, giant, it doesn't matter. You all make an impact. So
Right.
realize your value, number one. Number 2, ROI and ROE. So ROI, we all know, return on
Right.
investment. We've got to take into account
Yeah.
budgets matter.
Right.
But I implore my audiences all over the world to use another level to evaluate. So alongside of ROE, always take into your own self and then
Right.
share it with your clients the ROE, and that stands for return on experience.
Okay.
What is the return on experience that this client is going to get from hiring you? What is the return on experience that the attendee that they're doing this for, the colleague, the competition, the customer, the teammate? What is that? So I think we should always discuss the return on experience as well as the return on investment. So that second reason was communicate your value with your client. And I think there's a
Yeah, I
lot
like
to be
that.
said that, you know, by hiring me, bringing me on, paying attention to these details that are part of the budget, tell you why they matter. It's
Right.
that return on experience so that there is an intellectual forum present, so people can release their role, so
Yeah.
that we can unify community. And then lastly, I talked about opportunity. And Tracy's heard me talk about this before. I always like to talk about optional versus opportunity.
Right.
And then I smash them together because I don't think optional is anything. I think everything's opportunity. But it's up to us to look at it that way.
Right.
Now, we may get an email about Catersource The Special Event, and everyone here saw it as an opportunity and came. And granted, there are people that see it as a valid opportunity but have other commitments, or maybe they don't have the finances to come.
Yeah.
That's okay. But still, if we reframe things that we might think, oh, that happy hour is optional. Oh, that get together is optional. That lunch meeting with the local organization is optional.
Right.
We think of it as an opportunity. Well, we're more likely to do it, but we're also more likely to give more to it.
Right.
And learn more from it. And so I encourage everyone, whether it's in the vernacular over the next few days, if you're here in Austin, in your homes, in your workplaces, in your cities, all across the country and the world, to just think to yourself, anytime you say optional, swap that out with opportunity.
Yep.
And see what happens. And as it starts working for you, go ahead in that big Word document of our lives.
Right.
Do a find and replace. Find optional, replace with opportunity.
I
It
love
really
that.
makes a difference. And that really gets down to the fact that, yes, realize your value in
Right.
contributing to the third space. Communicate the value that you're contributing to your clients, and then embrace the value as an opportunity. And because you deserve it.
Yeah.
You deserve it,
Well, and
and
I
you
think
need it.
On the stage today, one of the things that I really thought was valuable that you did too was the hands-on 100. There
Yes.
is that, and the guy that brought out your coffee to help you bring that in. But he found the opportunity. He didn't have the full funds to attend the conference, but they have the hands-on 100 where he can pay half of that fee and come work a couple of hours at the convention, volunteer at the convention. So not only is he getting experience, he's networking, and he's getting to come to the conference he wanted to come to.
I really
And-
appreciate that. That
Yeah.
Informa, which
Yeah.
is the company behind Catersource The Special Event, has that opportunity.
Right. Yeah.
And I thought it was brilliant. So when we were talking about how we're going to switch out the stage, and I said, I need a barista. Now I got a fabulous barista apron, a tray, and coffee cups from the hotel where I'm staying. And I said, could I please have somebody from Hands on 100? Because I started at the White House when I was a volunteer.
Okay,
I
yeah,
answered
I
phones.
didn't know that.
Yeah,
That-
at
wow.
19, I answered phones, and then I was hired like about 6 months later. But I answered phones as a college student every day, all day in the press office. But I have such an appreciation for volunteerism.
Mhm.
And so I said, could I have a volunteer for that? It doesn't have to be like a barista from the show. 'Cause
Right.
That was our original concept. And then I read about Hands on 100. I'm like, can we do that? And so they got this great guy, Brandt, and I talked about Sound Unlimited Productions. He's
Yeah.
out of Indiana. So I plugged his company.
Yep.
I plugged Hands on 100. And it's just, that was a fun.
Yeah.
Those are like the things that I think I am so grateful that we get the opportunity to do.
Yes.
Because
Yeah.
you want to shine a light. That's the best thing we can do. So yeah, it's been a really neat experience. I work with some great clients and partners all over the world, but there is something special, and I said it today, coming home to just this lifestyle and this true passion and commitment to the catering and events community.
Yeah. It really is. And then so the other thing that I want to bring up too about
Oh,
it.
I thought you were having a snack.
No,
I thought-
I'm not
yeah.
having a snack. Yeah. I can't
What
eat
is
while
this?
this is the little 100 Search Foundation 100
Oh wow!
pin. So you can, We're talking on the computer. You want to come say hi?
Yes, and we're going to the Search Foundation event this
Yeah.
evening. Oh, welcome.
So the Search Foundation is the nonprofit organization that helps people in the events industry in times of trouble. So they raise a lot of money, and there's a function tonight. And I am part. You can't see it because of the shine, but there you go. 100. I'm one of the people that donates $100 a month to the Search Foundation to make sure that people in our community, when they're in need, have a resource to help them if they, can't work for a couple of weeks or whatever. But Laura was talking about that on the stage today, and I really love what the Search Foundation does.
Mhm.
So I am one of the people that donates $100 a month to the Search Foundation.
Oh,
I started it last year. Yeah. So
Oh, I should be doing that. Okay, let's get this on you.
Yep.
So this is like Medal of Freedom.
Medal of Freedom, exactly. But I love what they
Lord.
do because
That
they
is-
support our industry in times of need,
Oh.
the people that work in our industry.
Mm-hmm.
And I think during COVID, and that was we hurt really badly during COVID.
Oh yeah,
because
everybody.
my theory on that is that we're always the ones in the event team that are wearing black. We're behind the scenes,
Yeah,
and
not,
no one
not
sees.
to be seen.
not
Behind
to
the
be seen. Yeah.
scenes, not to be seen.
Exactly. And that hurt us during COVID because nobody knows we exist.
That's really profound. I didn't.
I mean, because you don't know all the tech guys that put on everything
Oh,
behind the
the
scenes and
numbers.
set up give me the dongle at the last minute to make sure I'm hardwired into the internet and things like that. But so I think this is a really, really important pin and an organization to help support the people in the industry.
And the people running the Search Foundation, there's one woman in particular, and you've known her as me,
Yeah.
Corinne Dudine.
Yep.
She's been a supporter of the event industry for years. In fact, with Event Solutions, is that the first conference you went to around events? Would you
No,
say?
it's probably ILEA, which was ISIS at the time,
Yes.
their conference for professional development.
Okay, because those were sort of like the first.
Yeah.
And then Event Solutions has now become the special event
Right,
in a
exactly,
much
yeah.
larger form.
Yes.
And Corinne Dudine was with Event Solutions, and she runs the Search Foundation. And it's so neat to see people come, they don't leave.
No.
They find other ways to be of impact. And I think she's really special.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Okay, so one of the questions that I ask all of my guests, and it's going to tie back to your eating and drinking, is
I do it a lot.
yeah, exactly. What does a safe, sustainable, and inclusive eating and drinking experience look like to you?
Oh, wow. It's, you know what? Number one, I want it to be shared with me.
Okay.
So whether it's a private dinner or just a dinner at a restaurant or I want to know, I want my menu not to just tell me what I'm eating, but I want it to tell me what's in it and why it's important. Kind of going back to not just what you're eating, but why you're eating it.
Right.
So I really appreciate menus that explain the sustainability. Sometimes it's from the location that the fish is caught.
Right.
Sometimes it's in the way it is caught. Sometimes it's the what do you say, breed of the fish, the type of fish.
Yeah.
So I really appreciate knowing about this because I try to be cognizant about it.
Right.
But if somebody puts it down, I'm going to eat it.
Right.
But boy, I can eat it and I can share the knowledge and information.
Yeah.
And guess what? I'm going to more likely go back there than somewhere else.
Yeah.
And so I really appreciate so I think the sustainable environment for me is one that shares it with me and makes me feel a part of it and really empowers me to be better about it when I leave that location. I think it also to me is dynamic. When everybody, gluten-free,
Right.
for some it's a necessity and others, say no more gluten.
Right.
But it used to be, eating cardboard,
Oh,
right? So I think a sustainable environment and a great experience for me are the dynamic tastes and scents and sensations
love that. Yeah.
of the food that, oh my gosh, this is, and the response, this is gluten-free. Oh, this is amazing.
Or this is vegan.
And then I can have twice as much. I'm
Right.
not gluten-free myself, but I feel like, oh, then I can have it too. They once did a study on people that ate yogurt. The control group was told it's all fat-free, And then the other group was told it's not fat free.
Uh-huh.
And the people that were told it was fat free ate twice as much. And the people that were told it's not fat free
Right.
just ate 1 cup.
Wow.
Yeah. Because, but so
Yeah.
I digress. But so when it's gluten free, I'm like, oh, I'll have 2. I'll have more. So yeah, I think it really is for me. It's being dazzled by the taste and the sense and the sensation, and then it's also the education component is so natural.
Yep.
We should infuse that into every menu so that it becomes part of the conversation.
One, and I think that also helps educating, which then pays it forward, because then I'm going to go think about it at my next event. Hey, they did this, and I liked how they did that, or they got this fish from somewhere or whatever, and pays, and it does. It's the whole life is about paying it forward.
And you live it. It's just Tracy doesn't just say it; she lives that. No, and I think that that's what's so wonderful, especially with Thrive, and how you literally have thrived yourself,
right?
And eating at a meeting, and all of your different ventures, every single one of them makes an impact, and every single one of them empowers others, and you want them to use that to pay it forward themselves, just like you do with supporting the Search Foundation. So that's what, when you can meet people who are authentic, it can change your life. Well, I'm talking about Tracy here, but thank you very much. But that really, it matters.
Yeah, it does. It really does.
And when you think about sustainability, isn't that like the most authentic level of cuisine?
Yeah.
And approach to cuisine that we can even have?
Yeah. There's a guy here that did a whole session on Indian cuisine, and I saw him last night at the party, so I want to reach out to him and interview him.
And see, again, that's at the party. And it's just out of conversation.
Yep. And that guy I met over there in the blue sweater, he works at the University of San Diego as culinary, and I met him at the party.
See, that is just, and I really appreciate organizations, whether they have a very large expo like this or even just a small trade show, built into the structure and really the strategy, right? From my perspective, because look, you meet people out at the party, but now you've got this time to see them again. So yes, you have programming, right? You've got these great parties, and then you've got this space to both be educated by all the booths here that are really inspirational. Yep. And then you also have time to just have that conversation in another setting. So yeah, it's a pretty neat setup.
Well, and because you had Rolando on the stage today, I sent him a message while I was listening to you, but I went over to his booth, and he does all the interactive food displays, like people coming from the ceiling and the dresses with the champagne glasses. And I'm like, we need to do an Eating at a Meeting podcast episode on that, because it is about eating at a meeting.
And that's Rolando Espinoza, the creative director at Champagne Creative, and now Champagne Creative Experiences. And I never met Rolando until the folks behind Catersource The Special Event, Informa, said he'd be great to have on stage.
It's fantastic.
And so I spoke with him like the others from Comcast that I'd mentioned, wonderful woman from Austin, Cindy Lowe with Red Velvet and Strong Events, and then an executive chef of the catering company Blue Plate. Well, Rolando, on our pre-call, and I made sure we talked about it today, is how he realized you have to have some duplicity in what you do for your client. This comes into that whole ROE factor as well as ROI. And he started realizing he had a vertical of food and beverage and a vertical about these great experiences. And now he combines those to your point of what you're speaking about. So you just look at the effort that went into, let me look at this from 30,000 feet.
Right.
See how we can do it better, not just for ourselves, but for our clients and who ultimately experiences the program or event.
Right.
And so I was very impressed. And so it's neat that you've seen that too.
Yeah.
And it's a whole new way.
And I told him, I'm like, I want you on the show. And then when I come to Las Vegas for whatever convention I come to, I want to come do it myself.
Oh,
try on that dress.
It is. It's the champagne. You have aerialists that will come down and pour the champagne.
I'm not
in your
sure
glass. I've
seen
the pictures. I haven't seen it in action, but
know.
I'm going to follow Rolando around until I can.
And I
try to be strapped in, but I don't trust myself.
No. Well, I tried some things for 50 before 50, like pole dancing and the draping things, and I'm like, I couldn't get my butt off the ground.
Like the silks with like
yoga. Yes.
And
that's what his people do. And I'm like,
I did the silk swing where I just got into the silk, the cocoon for an hour. That was much safer.
Yes,
much safer for me.
Okay, so last question. What do you want to share with people about our common ground as it relates to eating at a meeting?
As it relates to eating at a meeting, just know that food is an intrinsic part of our lives. And it should be a part of that third place, because when we break bread together, that's when great things happen. There is an emotional bond to the physical nature of breaking bread. And that can be gluten-free bread. That can be, but that's intrinsically part of it. And that's why I didn't just write a book about networking. I didn't write a book that just said common grounds. I wrote it saying eat, drink, and succeed, because I believe that when we're gathered together, whether with a power bar and a bottle of water, or with a great martini and sushi, or a fabulous steak, these are the moments that we turn ideas into reality, relationships into partnerships, and we find that conversation that can change our lives or others. It happens when we eat and drink together. We succeed. It's part of the fabric. This has been lovely. Thank you for inviting me to Eating at a Meeting, the podcast. And I absolutely just am inspired, not by what she does, but Tracy, by how you do what you do.
Thank you.
It really is. You're impactful and you pay it forward yourself. And you don't say anything that you otherwise also don't do yourself. And I truly appreciate that from the heart.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that.
Thank you all.
Yeah, thanks everybody. And I will be here tomorrow again. I'm
gonna come watch tomorrow.
Please do. So 11 o'clock Central, 12 o'clock Eastern. But until then, stay safe and eat well.
Thank you.
Thanks everybody.